everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So on this one here, I want to answer your guys' questions on The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, episode 2, and yeah, obviously on episode 3 as well, and I answer your guys' questions on all of that. So if you do want to take part in these Q&A videos, I got a couple people getting a little upset with me on the Discord that I don't really promote the Discord enough. So the Discord is a really amazing place. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, the link is in the description of this video. We talk about The Walking Dead like a lot, like after episodes, before episodes. There's channels there where you can talk with other Walking Dead fans about a bunch of stuff. There's always a lot of discussions. I mean, a lot of people are like, it's like a family there. You know, the server name is Appetite for the Dead, and that is where I get my questions from. So whenever you see me do these Q&A videos, if you're wondering where I get my questions from, there's a Q&A channel in the server that I'll always ask for questions every single week, and then you guys post a bunch of them, and then I get to them. And so, yeah, if you want to take part in these Q&As, definitely go follow the Discord. The server name is Appetite for the Dead. Again, the link is in the description of this video. But let's get into the first question here. I don't think I really have to warn you for spoilers, but other than, I guess, definitely, yeah, if you want more Walking Dead content like this, then make sure to be a subscriber. But let's get into the first question here. So Q&A. Do you think Thorne will be a threat to Michonne? She suspects her as an A. We saw it in the sneak peek of the 3rd episode. I think she is going to be a threat to Michonne. I just don't know where that goes afterwards, and I'm trying to think of like where it makes sense for the story to go in terms of, you know, how exciting they could make it overall. Like, if you're just kind of viewing it like, obviously where Thorne stands right now, Thorne is very much like, well, I want to help the CRM out. You know, this is all I got right now, so I'm following everything that I have to. Though, you know, she was going to side with Okafor in changing the CRM, which obviously was against what Major General Beal wants. And so, you know, there is that side to her where she will help out. But the thing is, Okafor was still working with the CRM, so it's a little different. You know, Rick and Michonne are trying to escape. It's very, very different. You know, I really feel like in order to understand Pearl Thorne and where her mindset is, you got to kind of think of how Okafor would have viewed it, right? Because I feel like their mindsets are very similar in that sense. Like, how would Okafor feel about Michonne being here? And I think Okafor would have a problem with it, right? Like, Okafor, yes, he would have helped Rick out and all that, but like, you know, he still follows the CRM. He still follows all of that, like, because he has to, right? So I think that Pearl Thorne is going to follow it no matter what, right? And so it just depends on how much Rick changes and a lot of that, right? Like, I feel like she would allow a lot of stuff where she'd be like, I won't say anything about this, this, and that, you know, as long as you follow the rules. And if Rick is not following the rules and he's trying to escape and all of that, then there's going to be some problems, right? There's going to be a lot of issues here. And I think that's where Pearl Thorne can become a really big issue here for Rick and Michonne. But do they end up killing her or something like that? No, I don't see that happening. I think it would also, in episode 3, be way too soon for the character to just all of a sudden be like, all right, I'm not on the CRM side anymore. I'll let you guys go. You know, like, I'll just look the other way. I don't see that happening with the character. There's no way, because then she'll get killed off right away. Like, as soon as Jadis finds out about that, or anyone, you know, like, that's kind of a thing with the CRM is like, no one is allowed to know about them. Like, if anyone sees a helicopter or anything like that, they're basically going to kill you, right? So they're not going to allow Rick and Michonne to just leave. And so if Pearl Thorne allows that, like, she's done, right? So she is not going to allow it. Like, a scary situation like that, I can't see her just allowing it in episode 3. Like, if that does happen, I honestly would be very upset with it in terms of like a story point, because like, it just makes no sense with what you've sort of built up with the CRM and all that, and that would go against everything that you sort of said. And I just don't think the character, as much as I like, yes, I do like Pearl Thorne, and I do think she's, you know, she's on our side overall, it would just be against, you know, just sort of what we've learned about it. So I think that yes, Pearl Thorne is going to be a threat, and we'll see where this character goes by the end. She could be, you know, she could completely become a villain, right? Like, her and Rick are still, you know, on the same side, and there just hasn't been that moment yet where we've seen where that went, right? But I think that as of now, yes, Pearl Thorne for sure is a threat to Michonne. Q&A, do you think Major General Beal will be more on Rick and Pearl Thorne now, or now that Okafor isn't there to protect them both? Yes, I think that now that Okafor is gone, we're going to see Beal look more into Rick Grimes. I think that it's going to seem very suspicious that Okafor died, because first of all, Okafor was a lieutenant colonel. Beal was already very suspicious of Okafor. And so the fact that Okafor died out of nowhere and that they picked up somebody and then Jadis is looking into it, and then Rick is back, and the whole thing with Rick, because Beal again was, originally like, how are you even here? Why are you even alive? Like, why do you want to be here, kind of thing, right? Like, he's already kind of like curious about Rick and like fascinated in him. So I think that that's probably where that's gonna go overall, is that now that Okafor is dead and that Rick and Michonne are here, once they escape and all that, I think Beal's gonna be like, all right, what's going on here, kind of thing, right? That's what I'm kind of interested in. I wonder if that's kind of what the story is right now, is like say Jadis is like the villain right now for this season, and say this does get a season 2. I wonder if Beal is just sort of set up for that right now, and he's just kind of, wondering what's going on, but they're trying to keep everything quiet because they don't want to like obviously make him aware of all this stuff. And then all of a sudden one day he hears more about what's going on. He's like, all right, what's going on here? Then he steps in, and then everyone's terrified, right? Q&A, Nat or Esteban? Oh man, out of those two characters, honestly, I'd have to say my favorite character would have to be Esteban. I mean, like if you put Esteban or Rick Grimes, I would pick Esteban. So yeah, very easy question. Q&A. When Michonne was interrogated, she mentioned that her weapon of choice was a bow staff, which is another reference to Morgan. Do you think that all of these Easter eggs like Texas in the opening credits, the Art of Peace, and now the reference of the bow staff are heavily hinting at his return? And yes, I was going to do a video on this. I'm still going to. I've been noticing a lot of this. There's a lot of these Easter eggs to Morgan right now. It's like these small things here and there, but it does sort of, it is who the character is, like the bow staff, and now you have, well, there's the Art of Peace, and then there's everything that happened in Texas, and obviously Morgan, he has dealt with the CRM specifically, so I think that this is teasing, all of that, because again, like people keep focusing on the fact that The Ones Who Live is going to end Rick and Michonne's story. That is true, but if there's 3 seasons of the show, it still counts as the same thing, right? And can you end his story without a reunion with Morgan or Daryl or anybody else? You can't, because that's still, a storyline that was introduced in season 9 that hasn't been wrapped up yet, right? So you eventually have to get to it here. So I think all of this here, it does feel like it's set up for Morgan's return in like probably in the finale and like a post-credit scene again, because I don't think he's going to play a role in this story right now. I think he'll probably be a season 2 thing. Q&A, although it wasn't very surprising, on a scale from 1 to 10, how sad are you about Nat? Well, I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, how I feel about it right now is I would probably put it like at a 6 or a 7. Like when it originally happened, I was just so sad for the character, because the thing is, these characters are so good, and like I don't know what it is specifically. Well, it's probably the writing and the casting and all of that, but I love the character of Nat so much, and I wish that he would have stayed around a lot longer. Like man, like you love these characters a lot. You can, if you really built up these characters and they became like side characters that, I mean, they are side characters, but if they were around for a lot longer, say one of them died in season 1 or in season 2, right? That would make it so heartbreaking. But now you have, I guess Pearl Thorne is kind of that as well, if she ever dies. But then again, like Pearl Thorne, I don't like her as much as I liked like Okafor and Nat, right? And I'm not saying I don't like her at all. I love Pearl Thorne, but she hasn't had like the scenes that like, Nat and Okafor have had, right? Like she hasn't had those moments. So like, I think that I wish that they would have stayed around. On a scale of 1 to 10, how sad am I about it? I mean, it really made for an epic moment. It really built up the episode as well, like both deaths. So I would have to say for Nat, probably around a 6 or a 7 at this point. Like I'm still sad about it, but I also get it. Q&A, do you think Michonne will tell Thorne who she is? And if she does, what do you think Thorne would do? And do you think Beal will let Rick and Michonne go, but he will say, if you go, we will attack and stuff, and just before Beal kills Jadis? I don't think Beal is ever going to let them go. That's never going to happen. I think that if that ever happened, I'd be like, wait, what? What's going on? Will Michonne tell Thorne who she really is? I think she'll learn in that final scene there, like that scene where we see them, you see Pearl Thorne confronting Michonne. I think Rick's going to be in this scene eventually too, and I think here is where she's going to learn. I think if Michonne is like, no, I'm Dana, kind of thing, the entire time, I think the second Rick shows up, Pearl's going to be like, okay, you need to tell me who she is right now. And I think it's just going to be so obvious at that point that it's Michonne. And I think it's going to be a really cool action scene. I don't think she's going to let her go. So I don't know what's going to happen there. If, obviously Rick and Michonne aren't dying. Does Pearl Thorne die here in this episode? Probably not. So we'll have to see where this goes, but it's probably going to be a really cool action scene, right? Q&A, do you think the long-standing deal Jadis and Rick have is her not telling Beal or the CRM about Alexandria and the other communities? This deal could be broken if Rick and Michonne escape the CRM. I wonder if that is the deal. The thing about that, though, is like, I don't know if, that could be the deal. I'm trying to figure out like what she would have said then. Like if she was like, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to mention anything about any of that, but you just have to stay here the whole time. Like that's never really been a thing that has come up. right? And the way that she mentioned it, like, if you try to escape with her, everyone you love, this and that, they're done. It almost felt like, in Rick's reaction, it almost seemed like it was a new thing he was learning, or maybe he just got really upset and like kind of distressed about it or whatever. But it's hard to say what that deal is. I am very curious about that. It would have to be something that, obviously, like, although I don't know. No, you know what? Honestly, I feel like that really could be it. Like, it could really be that simple, but I guess we'll find out. Like, all this stuff with Jadis, I'm so excited for episode 3. I cannot wait for the opening minutes. I can't wait to talk about all that, because they're probably going to get into a bunch of stuff. Q&A, knowing about A's and B's, looking back on Heath's character, doesn't make sense for him to be an A. Also, how do you feel about the retcons in the timeline, like Michonne's story taking place 6 years after the bridge, despite there's already been a 6-year time skip in 906? I think that when it comes to timeline stuff, I ignore everything that they ever put out there. They're so horrible at it. They've always been so horrible with timelines. Like, it's so hard to say when things take place. They've always been bad with it. Like, season 1 all the way to the end of season 8 is like 2 years, 2.5 years, which is insane. Carl's a little kid in season 1. And then he's like a teenager in season 8, right? But somehow that's only 2 years. I just ignore that. I consider that being like 3-4 years. I mean, I know in their timeline it is about that long, but I really try to ignore it because it just doesn't seem right. And then they do a 1.5-year time jump afterwards. So roughly it's 4 years or whatever. And then they jump forward after Rick leaves. It's 6 years. So it's been about 10 years or 10.5 years, right, into the apocalypse. But there's also some time jumps at that point there, because there's a whole summer or whatever that goes by, or winter anyways. The cold months, it's summer again, in season 10. There is some time that passes by throughout a lot of that. And again, that's 11 years, and then eventually closer to 12 years. And then they do a year time jump. So I think it's like 12, 13 years, but I'll just safely say 12 years for sure when, The Walking Dead ends. And so I think as of now, they're about at that point there. And I think that if they try to say it was beforehand, it's not going to make any sense. Trust me, if you focus on the timeline of all this stuff, none of it is going to make any sense. To me, the Rick and Michonne show is taking place at some point. It has to be during Daryl Dixon and Dead City. Dead City could be a little bit further, but I think it's roughly around the same time. Like, to me, if it's set beforehand, there's got to be a reason. I'm not sure, but I think that it's set around that time, because otherwise none of it really makes a lot of sense. But again, there's always been issues like this, so I really do ignore that. But in terms of your question about Heath, it's hard to say whether or not he would have been an A or a B, but I think considering the fact that we haven't seen anything about the character or heard anything, he probably was an A, and I think he was probably killed off while he was killing walkers and stuff. Q&A, since Daryl Dixon's gonna get 4 to 5 seasons, do you think Daryl or Carol could die? Yeah, I think any of those characters can die. I think any of the main characters can die once we get to like the final seasons of the shows. Like, I think right now they're fine, but once we get to like the final season of the shows, then they could die at that point, because I mean, they've already done their spinoffs, they did their original show. At that point, anything could really happen. Q&A, do you think that The Ones Who Live is a limited series because they want to conclude Rick and Michonne's story, but then make another limited series with a new title and a story to set up the storyline with the CRM's bigger plans and then maybe taking them down? No, I think that was I think The Ones Who Live is a story that's going to end Rick and Michonne's story. It is. And it was originally announced as a limited series. I don't remember exactly what they said, but there was like 6 episodes, this and that. And so it was basically, that's what it was, right? But things have changed since then. Like, it has changed a lot. Again, they asked AMC, Entertainment Weekly asked AMC, as soon as it was announced, like, is this a 1-season thing or is this going to be more? And they said it's the first of a continuing series. But then it kind of went back a little bit. We would see Andrew Lincoln or Denai Guerrero, or hear them anyways, say like, oh no, it's a mini series, this and that. And so we were like, okay. And then you would get other information about things. And then all of a sudden during the promotion over the last however long here, they've been way more open to doing a season 2. I think that they just want to see how it's going to do ratings wise. And, they're very open if the idea is really, really amazing. And I think they know where it's going to go. And they just want you to experience it first. I think this is the excitement of all of this, right? This is the point of watching it. Like, this is why I think if they would have announced a season 2, because I saw a comment the other day of somebody saying that they should announce a season 2 already because Daryl Dixon and Dead City did. The thing with that, though, is you do sort of ruin any element of surprise on whether or not that character is going to die, right? And we know that Andrew Lincoln loves that. Andrew Lincoln was so upset when they announced that he was leaving the show. They wanted us to just watch the show just like it was a normal whatever, and then all of a sudden randomly he's taken off the show and everyone's so shocked and like, wait, what just happened, right? He wants it to be an element of surprise. He wants everyone to sort of go on this roller coaster and experience all of this. So to me, that's why we don't know anything right now. And I feel like, you know, if AMC, if they were to go and announce a season 2, it's just going to upset Andrew Lincoln and all that. And then maybe he doesn't want to do a season 3 or do other things, right? So I think that if he has a lot more say in how they sort of talk about this and announce things, then yeah, then I think obviously we'd get more stuff like that. So that's why I think right now it's so like the option seems to be very open, and there's all these little things that are coming out that seems like they're hinting at a season 2, but they're not saying it because we just have to watch the show, right? So I think that's the point overall. Like that's the reason why we're watching this. But as soon as we watch the finale, once that airs, then we can ask the question and we'll know at that point, right? So it was a limited series originally, but I think that a lot of things sort of changed afterwards. And I think that it turned into some other stuff. So anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Again, thank you guys for posting all of your questions. Make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.